I love that. I did a wee wee. Did you wash your hands? You liar. I didn't hear the tap. Don't ever lie to me. No, go and wash your hands right now. I did. No, I know you didn't. Come here. Come here. Let me see your hands. Come here. Let me smell. No, you fibber. Go and wash your hands now. Never lie to me, Alba.
I just did, Mum. Now I'm going to see if they're water.
I feel like she wouldn't be keeping this up if she didn't.
No, her hands are...
She does this funny smile when I know she's laughing.
If they're water.
No, I don't believe it, babe.
She didn't.
No, her hands are...
She does this funny smile when I know she's laughing. I think maybe she needs to be a little bit more.
No, I don't believe it, babe.
She didn't. She does this funny smile when I know she's laughing.
Her hands, babe, have not washed. Her hands, babe, have not washed.
It is the inability to see that those things are all connected. So that the life audit has immediately said, okay, those things are connected. You have an opportunity to be really honest with yourself. Go away and do that. And also by putting the scores against those different facets of your life to try and give some sort of empirical score to how you felt about things, I found really interesting, because the first thing you can do when you've got a score against something is start thinking about how you can change that score, perhaps in a way that you don't when it's just an issue or problem. So
you remember your first scores?
I don't, but I remember there were a few 6s and 7s in there, which actually ended up going down a bit at one point when you got even more brutally honest and realistic with yourself. But just the act of having a score for me was a really good thing, because you can keep coming back to it. And I know, a lot of the guys in the mastermind put their kind of weekly scores on when they review how they've come up from the week. That's not something I do, but I think it's an interesting activity, and I'd encourage people to be as empirical about how they feel as they can. So that life audit was the starting point for thinking about the why, really.
Okay, that's interesting. So just for people that don't know, so in the book, I think this is where we first established it. And just want to give a bit of background on the life audit so people understand what it is. The life audit is something that I did, I guess, on when I kind of come to that flip point in my own life. And I kind of looked at it. I didn't suddenly go, oh, there's 4 pillars that I'm going to focus on. But I think it was this self-reflection and the tool of self-reflection in terms of going, okay, where am I right now? Like, I realize I'm not in a great place, and where do I want to be? And that evolved, I guess, as I started working with people more. I looked at 4 key pillars in our lives, which I think kind of cover the majority of our life. So that was health. And underneath health kind of comes mental, emotional, and physical conditioning, business and career in terms of work-life balance, in terms of productivity, how we manage our time and our energy. And in terms of our relationships, how are we managing our closest relationships, from our partners and our children to those relationships that we neglect? So friendships that we don't monitor or catch up on, working relationships, parents, etc. Are we paying enough attention to those guys? And how much personal development are we putting in? So those 4 developments is kind of what Matt is talking about. And you did the 5-day? Did you do the 5-day?
I did a 5-day challenge, and then that was where the concept was introduced, and it was really interesting. And then I actually read the book after the 5-day challenge. which kind of reinforced that. And I went back and did it again. So it's a kind of, it's an easy win. It's an easy process if you can just carve out a bit of time to do it properly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I think with the life audit is that people answer so quickly without reflection. So like what I asked you to do it is in the morning, and you've only got a day to do it. And if you did it and you actually thought about it throughout the week, your scores would actually be very different, because there's other elements as well, is that we kind of bury our head in the sand, right? We kind of don't want to put the scores too low because we don't want to think our life is that in that bad of a shape right now. And it's not a bad thing. It's just reality. And the more reality and the more honest we are with this, the more that we can grow and the more foundations and fundamentals we can put into place to change that score. Okay. Would you agree?
Definitely. It's something to keep coming back to. It's not the sort of starting point. It's the reference point. So I keep coming back to it, and probably on a monthly basis trying to redo that audit, because you've also got to recognize that your mood and your emotions ebb and flow, and you get impacted by different things at different times. So to take a step back and look at it over a longer period of time, I think is helpful, and that sort of informs your goals going forward.
Yeah, 100%.
And underneath, and the interesting thing, I mean, you mentioned it at the outset, James, but the interesting thing about coming out of that process was then to really challenge yourself about the why and what your personal why was. And I'm sure, and I'm guessing I'm like a bunch of people who are in business who spend a lot of time thinking about the why in a business context. So we're always constantly being challenged to differentiate ourselves in the market, and what's the point of my business compared to the one that looks like it down the road, and how do you do that? But actually to do that in your personal life, and then think about it feeds your thoughts about who you are and what your identity is, and also your priorities. So I came out of that process of thinking about my personal why, really looking at it in 3 levels. So there was, and when I say why, it's partly about what's important to you, but it's more about what motivates you, because a lot of this journey is about digging deep to improve and in a positive way. It's not all about fixing problems. It's about building on strengths as well.
Yeah.
And to do that, you really need to have the motivation. So there are dark and difficult times in any journey. And I think going back to what's actually driving you, what the real why is, was key. So I came out of that looking at it at 3 levels, which not sure whether it's the best approach, but I thought about it from a family level, from a work level, and from a Matt level, from a myself level. So at a family level, I was really keen to, I kept coming back to this idea of being a role model. So coming back to trying to, being motivated to set a standard that inspires and guides my children. And I think a lot of people come back to their children, but it can be wider than that. But for me, it was how can I guide them? How can I inspire them? And you're not always going to be there to do that. My children are quite old teenagers, so they're going to be off looking after themselves soon enough. And it's how can you give them that reference point to inspire and guide them? And I found that very powerful and a good reference point for me. And then in work, it was kind of slightly different, but there's some similar stuff there, because it was still about role modeling in some ways, but it was really about trying to create the self-belief and the focus and the I guess the freedom to be creative within my teams. I've got a couple of hundred people that work for me or with me, and it's how can you unlock the potential in them through giving them that sort of self-belief and that empowering them to be creative. And that was all outward focused. And then there was a bit about me, and I think we have it drummed into us over a long period of time that thinking about yourself is a bad thing, and that selfishness is a negative word. But I do think in a lot of this process of trying to identify where you can grow, you have to come back to yourself. And it was, for me, it was really simple when I'd reflected on it. I didn't get this on the first day of the 5-day, but when I came back and reflected, it was really how can I stay excited about life? My motivation was, it's really easy in your 40s and 50s and beyond to get beaten down and lose your zest for life. So it was, my why was I need to do a bunch of things that are going to keep me excited about life. And for me, that's a few specific things, but actually just understanding what that is and feeding those things that keep me alive, keep me positive outside of the work environment.
Mate, and to think you got all of that just from a life audit. But the biggest thing that I noticed, and I talked about this with Mike yesterday, is that the life audit has just taken your level of self-consciousness and self-awareness to a whole new level, right? So you suddenly recognize areas that you need to focus more on. And I think that one of the biggest areas that men struggle to move forwards with is because they're firefighting all of the time. So we're work firefighting, we're firefighting the routine, we're firefighting the relationships, and we're not actually putting ourselves first, which is what you said. Now, one of my philosophies is that you come first before business, before your children, before your wife, before your mortgage payments, because if you don't come first, then no one ever gets the best version of yourself. Your head's not in the right frame of mind. And I think that one of the things that brings out this situation that we're going through with the coronavirus right now is how are we handling ourselves in terms of, are we being a leader or are we just panicking and firefighting? And I think sometimes when we look at ourselves, which is exactly what the life audit is, it really determines the type of character that we are. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's huge potential right now to come out of this in a much better position, with much more opportunity out the other side of it. I really do. There is people that could be super fit here, super structured and routined. I think the way that we're going to do things is going to be completely different, as we spoke briefly. And I think there's a massive opportunity to come out a much better version of yourself out of this particular pandemic that we're going through.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And part of that mindset is finding the space and the energy to be positive about it, to look at the things that are positive. You've talked about these on some of your podcasts and things, but right now we do have some fantastic opportunities to mix it up, do things differently, be with our family, challenge ourselves, get into a different fitness routine, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We can be brought down by all the things that are going on around us, but actually, when you've started to get your mind in the right mindset, you can find those positives and work on them. And that doesn't mean you're in denial about all the other stuff. It just means you're making a positive choice. And a lot of this journey is about making a positive choice to focus on the things that you can control, the things that you can grow and develop. And as you've said many times, not worry about the things you can't control, because they'll just bring you down.
Yeah.
And in my experience of being in the brotherhood, in the community of guys that are working with you, is that people support each other to focus on those positive things, and that's hugely valuable. It's very easy to get isolated. I work in a leadership role in a business. It's very easy to get isolated because you're running an organization, you're managing people, and actually to have that community of people around you that, you don't feel isolated in that way, and you can support and encourage each other, is absolutely critical.
100%. I totally agree. 100%. Which links us nicely onto, so I've got here why personal development isn't selfish. Now, in terms of personal development, before you were on your new journey, this new path to improve yourself, were you doing anything in terms of personal development? And once we've got past that stage and you're improving yourself now, what sort of things do you do to improve yourself personally, to develop what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I was doing things from a personal development point of view, but I probably didn't value them as being personal development. So I kind of saw them as chores. So I'm one of those guys that sets himself goals. So I'm always learning things, and I'm signing on to courses and all that kind of stuff. Particularly with a professional sense, but I also do some personal stuff as well. But I hadn't kind of seen that as an investment in myself. I'd seen it as something, as a goal I'd set myself. I need to get through it, move on to the next. But actually, what the process has done has helped me value that and enjoy that process of personal development. And I think enjoying that rather than seeing it as a chore is an important thing. And that personal development, I think you can focus on that in a business sense. And I know a lot of people that get a lot of satisfaction out of developing their skills that they can deploy in their business. And I've definitely done some of that. But I think it's important to do things outside of work as well. And personal development being about personal development as well as business skills development. And sometimes that's not obvious. And we get out of the habit, don't we, of working out what we want to do as we go through our 30s and have families and kids and work gets busy. But actually taking a step out and saying, hang on, this is how I want to grow. And back to what I was saying earlier about maintaining your zest for life and not kind of withering on the vine as you get into your late 40s and 50s, where I am. You've actually got to feed that. So identifying something that you can do would be good. My personal development largely revolves around my hobby, which is flying. So I've been flying for about 25 years. I hope that's not a new dry cough.
No.
Been flying been flying for about 25 years, and I just took that stage further and said, okay, how can I develop those skills? So I've started on a journey of getting my commercial pilot's license so that I can do some teaching and possibly some medical relief flying in Africa when I get to a point of semi-retirement in a few years' time. So maybe those are crazy goals, but actually the process of identifying those and going and doing some training and personal development has made me a much happier person. It's given me some balance in where I put my non-work energy.
Would you agree that I think that if you are raising your game in your own personal development, that it satisfies that fulfillment itch that I think many of us or many men miss in life?
Well, I think a lot of us are goal driven, and the problem for many of us is that our goals are set for us. Whether that's by work, family, parents, whatever it might be. Yeah, you said that, not me. Our goals are set for us. So actually, the beauty of thinking about personal development is you can set your own goal, and that's really positive. So you can decide what you're interested in.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I find massively between when people set goals, so this you might be able to resonate with this, maybe not, but I know that in the past, I've set like the best goals. I've spent like half a day going, this is what I'm going to achieve this year. This is what I'm going to do in the first 12 years. And then you never look at that list again. Yeah,
definitely.
You're like, great. And it's all talk and it's all like, and one of the things that I think we're trying to introduce into our culture in the mastermind is accountability, right? It's ownership. It's looking yourself in the mirror and say, do you remember what you're trying to achieve? Like, where are the goals that we're going here? Sometimes you've got to be selfish to make sure that you are getting something out of life as well. It's important that we get some fulfillment and that we come first every now and then in our lives so that we can raise our game.
Yeah, and recognizing the connection between developing personally and feeling positive about that, and your ability to deliver as a leader, as an employee, as a father, a husband, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You need to be on top of your own game to have the best chance of doing that well for other people. So it is, back to your original question, it is at one level it's selfish because you're diverting time and attention and resources into something that you want to do, but actually ultimately, if you get that right, everyone benefits around you.
100%, yeah. It sets the state of mind, right? Okay, so let's look at our next one. So I imagine that you have quite a chaotic business work life. Okay, so in terms of establishing a routine around that chaos to find structure, if you like, amongst that chaos, can you share what you used to be like in terms of your structure and kind of like the improvements that you've made and what's worked for you and the benefits of those things that you've worked on?
So it's interesting because I came to all of this and working with you and the guys because there was kind of structural chaos. So most of my time went, 95% of my free time went into making sure that the wheels stayed on the business and it was going the right way, and that the family had the bare kind of necessities from me and kept it going. But outside of that, everything else was unstructured. So I was, those are my key goals, but everything outside of that was unstructured. So I was in a different place every week, different countries, different time zones, different offices at work, I've got 2 flats in 2 different places. So I was in different flats. So nothing was structured. There was no routine. And what I've learned over the last year has been, although you can't change all of that, so you can work on the structural routine, but you can't change all of that. What you can do is start to put routine and structure in at a daily basis, and that idea of getting your daily routine to have some common themes in it, accepting that probably what happens during the course of the working day is different every day, but getting your morning routine the same and your evening routine the same. That was for me that was a horrendous thought, putting that structure in, but actually having worked with it, I've now become dependent on it, which is and I say that word advisedly, I have become dependent on it. And I think when things get really difficult, business, life, whatever it might be, the little win on a daily basis of getting through some of the things I said I would do at 6 o'clock in the morning and I do at 10 o'clock at night, that little win is just a reference point. You come back to it, you feel good about it. It's become really, really important. And I still, past 7-8 weeks accepted, I still fly all over the world doing work, but I'll get up in my hotel in New York at 7 o'clock and I'll go and do exactly what I said I was going to do, the same as if I was in London or wherever else I might be. And I found that a huge sense of satisfaction and reassurance.
So that routine, almost, that structure, I just picked up on what you said at the end there. You're going to do what you said you were going to do rather than just saying it. So you find that routine and that structure gives you the ownership to say, actually, I'm done. Tick, tick, tick. Yeah. And that sense of it, like achievement almost kind of builds momentum, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's because the more you do it and the more momentum you've got, the worse you feel about it when you jump out of the routine. So it's a kind of self-regulating thing. So you keep doing it, you feel good about it. You want to not do it less.
Yeah.
You have to. For me, I have to write it down. I need to be looking at it. I think that's absolutely key. So I do my weekly planning. I write down what my morning routine is or my evening routine. And people were horrified at my 4 different pen colours on my bit of paper, and I get it ripped out of me at all levels. Don't worry, but that is really important to me. Write it down, colour code it, do it, and as you said, tick it off. Is a really good way of getting some routine into your life, really, and that's a positive thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to put some background on this as well. I think it's really important to do it. I think that for many people, one of the things that I really noticed is that when I started in the fitness industry and I started trying to get people fit and focusing on the fitness side and nutrition side, rather than introducing all of the knowledge that I had in terms of routine and structure, many of the guys that would want to be fit and lose weight and introduce better eating habits and routines, the reason that so many people and men were dropping off was because that they couldn't even organize themselves in the first place. And when they couldn't organize themselves, they become distracted and and what I ended up finding out really from a lot of the guys is they had a lot of cups half full. So you would start something, get distracted, start something else, get distracted, start something, and you end up like with the weight of the world on your mind thinking, oh, I've got to finish that, I've got to finish that, I've got to finish that. And one of the things that I get you guys to implement is the timetable, which has been huge for me. Because when we go to college or when we go to university, we structure our lives, we base our lives around this one little piece of paper. It's incredible. We've got to be at this classroom at this time to learn this lesson with this teacher. Then we can plan our study time around it. We can plan our time with our friends, our gym, all the things we used to do at college and uni. And then we go into the big wide world and that suddenly just goes like that. And it was just suddenly you're expected to create your own piece of paper, which we don't do. And then we let everything slip. The work-life balance, the rules of our lives, the morning routines, the health dedication to yourself. And I think what routines does, and where we talk about the chaos, that chaos is just like, oh my goodness me, it's like all over the place. It's like a scribble on the piece of paper. And we just stick in a big rectangle this is my vision of routine and structure, by the way. Stick that big rectangle in the middle of that scribble lines, and just inside of there is calm, is structure, is vision, is clarity, is control and consistency. All of those things that come with personal management, structure and routine, right? And you become a much more efficient human being in terms of your performance when you're in that rectangle, rather than being caught up in those scribbles of chaos in life.
Yeah, it's like anything. The more you do it, the more professional and you become, and the better your performance on it. And I think that comes with something as simple as routine. And I definitely felt that, because I was in that boat of lots of half empty glasses everywhere. And that's an interesting one for me to visualize right now as we're talking, because that's exactly how I felt. And you're spinning plates, you're doing enough, and you're just getting by.
Yeah.
But gradually, incrementally, that sense of overwhelm builds over a period of time. And for me, the routine was the sort of commitment to the commitment to doing a routine was the commitment to sorting it out for myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't like waking up literally not knowing where I was or what was going to happen. So actually now life is different, and it's still challenging and hugely exciting, and there's loads of really positive things going on. But there's a bit of bedrock in every day, and I think that's an important place.
Well, the 3 words that I use quite a lot, all the time, is consistency, with control, and clarity. They're 3 really key words to kind of bring everything that we've just spoken about together, I think. Right, we're going to move forward. So the importance of long-term planning. How important is that to you? And is it something you used to do, or is it something that you do now? And how far do you go ahead and plan long term?
So it's really interesting. I'm not a natural planner, right? So that's where we started from. My role is about being reactive and picking up on things and responding to them. And long-term planning is something I have other people in the business to do around me. And in fact, it's a bit of a joke at work. And I do the sketching and someone else does the colouring in. So the kind of long-term planning it's been an interesting thing. I have moved, and in fact, as part of the process of working with you, I have moved to, for the first time ever in my life, like nearly 50 years of life, had never done a long-term plan, and I did one last year on the back of a mastermind meet where I came away. I remember being beaten up in public and shamed into doing it, and which is a very positive thing. So, but I went away and did it, and actually, it was hugely liberating because. And what I found was that I could fill the next 12 months, and I could probably tell you where I wanted to be in 3 or 5 years' time. But I had no idea what the connection was between the start and the finish of that plan. And it literally took me a couple of weeks, to be honest, to really populate. How do I get from where I am now, through all the things I've said I need to do in the next 6 to 12 months, to 3-5 years out, where I want a few things to be a bit different, ideally in a better way. Yeah. And that exercise was really, really helpful for me. And it's funny because I'm used to that as a concept in business life, but actually doing it in your personal life I don't think comes naturally to many people. So that was healthy. And what I did was I sort of took the Amazon approach to business planning, which is you start at the end and then you work back to where you're going to be today. So I started with where I wanted to be in 3-5 years' time, and then work back and said what steps do I need to go through to get to there. And importantly, just to be really realistic about that. I mean, again, when you see it on a piece of paper with some timelines, I did it visually. You can't do these things overnight. And in some ways, when you realise that and you start to spread it out over, say, 3 years, rather than worrying about the fact that you haven't got it now, becomes hugely reassuring because it's a planning and delivery exercise, and we're all capable of doing that.
Well, that's where that rule of 1% comes in a day and the small wins. I think one of the reasons I keep saying to people about the 1% wins and the small wins and the tiny steps that we take to reach the bigger goal is because when we want it, everybody wants everything really quick these days. They want immediate change. They want to see a difference in the mirror. They want to see a difference in their business. And, because everybody wants it really quick, everyone forgets the long-term aspects of this. So we're talking, like I could in theory turn around and say it's going to take 365 days to change. And I truly believe it takes a year for someone to change the way neurologically, the way that they live their lifestyle, so that everything that I do teach and preach becomes second nature. And to the point where, you can survive, it, you're never going back. Do you know what I mean? And the whole process of that journey is learning, is failing, winning, falling off the wagon, coming on the wagon, but it's coming back on the wagon. It's your bounce back ability, which is quicker. You'll become sharper. And it's really interesting because I do remember talking to you and shaming you in public. No, I didn't shame you. But when we was at our meet in London in November, we talked about the 10-year plan, right? And everyone says to me, why would you plan 10 years? Because like life is going to completely change. Blimey, you know, anything could happen in 10 years. But I said it gives you a vision, it gives you a North Star to focus on, right? And it gives you the opportunity to reverse engineer. And I remember when I was 40, I did this, and I wrote down my 4 pillars, and I wrote down where I'd like to be for each of those 4 pillars when I was 50 years old. And like that might change. I'm gonna recap that when I'm 45. But I just went, okay, where do I need to be in 5 years to achieve those 10 years? And 5 years is still a long way away. Like, you know, I don't plan in detail. I just plan roughly where I need to be. Then I bring it back to where do I need to be at the end of that year? This is exactly what sort of like you've been doing with your life. And then where do I need to be in these next 12 weeks? Where do I need to be this week? What do I need to do today? And suddenly that one small day becomes so significant, because that one day, if you meet that 1%, that's one small dot closer to that 10-year vision. And better to have a 10-year vision or an end destination than be a boat in the middle of the ocean with no sail, no compass, no direction, and just drifting. And that's like, that gives you consistency of action, control of action, and clarity of where you're heading. And I think that's, when we plan for ourselves long term, I think those things all come into play. And that's the reason people are like, why would you plan? Why do you need to plan? You know, some people like to cuff their life. You know, some people just want to flow through and kind of go with it, which is cool. But I think for our mental and emotional well-being, I think it's nice to be in control.
Yeah, and you move from, I mean, this is where I was anyway. The only planning I was doing was kind of survival planning. How do you cope in the next 3 months? It was to growth planning, which links back into what we were saying earlier about personal development and goals and all that kind of stuff. So it's a different type of planning. But the beauty of the 1% every day is you kind of give yourself a break. And it's not, you know, you've got to lose 10 kilograms in 12 weeks or you're a failure. It's like, no, it's realistic. You've got to give yourself a break, whatever it is that you're personally focusing on. And the thing about longer term planning, and you know, the older you get, the quicker that time goes. So 10 years doesn't seem like a long time right now, and in quite the same way as it would have done 10 years ago. So it goes like that. So, you know, it's I haven't planned out 10 years, but I've definitely planned out 5, and that it's interesting. I do come back to it, genuinely come back to it regularly, and think, am I on track? Is it changed? What have I achieved?
It's exciting, and as well, it's exciting, right? To dare to dream about what you could achieve.
Definitely. I haven't shared it with my missus yet, though.
As long as she's in it. Okay, so why do you think it's important to be accountable to someone? So let's have your take on, you know, the difference. Have you been accountable to people in the past, being the head of your company, and how do you find the importance of it now, personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know how these things are different, but in a work context, I think they are. So there's being accountable to people, and there's being answerable to people. I think they're two slightly different things. In business, there are definitely people that I'm accountable to, because there are shareholders in the business, and you know, my part of my role is to be accountable to them. But on a daily basis, I'm not really answerable to anyone. So you get. And I'm sure, you know, in all different levels, in different worlds, that there are elements of that. You get very used to being able to sort of talk your way in and out of anything, convince yourself of anything. You're not really held to account. And certainly, if there are any other lawyers watching this, you'll know that we can convince ourselves anything. It can be A or B. We can talk ourselves in and out of it. So it's what we're trained to do. So actually having someone that says, no, there's a line in the sand here. And it's not about being accountable to you, or being accountable to the guys in the mastermind. It's about you and the guys in the mastermind providing a platform where you're accountable to yourself, and it's learning to be accountable to yourself that I think is the real skill. Yeah. But you've got to have that accountability. I mean, if you've gone to the effort of setting some goals and doing some long-term planning, why wouldn't you hold yourself accountable to it?
Agree.
For me, they go hand in hand. So I found that incredibly useful. For anyone that's involved in the mastermind, they'll know that 9 o'clock every day, you have to put up with whether you've done your morning routine and what you've done, which sounds like a tiny little trivial thing. But I'll tell you what, it's the one thing that I wake up and think about in a way that I didn't 12 months ago. It's a sad little thing, but it's a little reference point in the day. And if you don't hit it, if you do it like I did the other day at 9:20 rather than before 9 o'clock, you feel bad about it.
And Louise,
yeah. Louise, I got away with that one.
Yeah, Louise is like, yeah, 100%. A big, and I do it. I'm fully involved in these accountabilities as well because it's important for me to be. But I sit there at breakfast and go, God, it's 8:49. Stop what you're doing. Make sure you get it up before 9 o'clock. And you're absolutely right. It instills real life with a 3-year-old in the background.
Doing well.
Just digging out blind in there to keep her at hand. It forces you to have to take action. It forces you to, like, I'm part of a mastermind, my own separate mastermind where I'm surrounded by elite level business guys who are much bigger than I am. And I don't want to be the guy that doesn't show up or doesn't perform, and it makes me want to show up. It infuses me to let's get involved here. I want to be the guy that's always showing up. I want to be the guy who's on his game. And it doesn't matter if I have a bad day, the next day we wake up and we push on, right?
Yeah, it was back to what I was saying about the personal why. It's about setting the standard. So there's this little, these battles are won in small little interactions, not in the big picture. So it's the little things every day that make the difference, that add up. And for me, if I do miss the it's just an example, isn't it? But if I do miss the accountability on a morning by 9 a.m, it's not that you sit there and go, oh, I'm a bit shit, I've not done that. Yeah. Beat yourself up. Actually, what you do is you look at it and go, okay, why did I miss that? And sometimes you go, okay, it's interesting reflection why I missed that. It doesn't happen often, but it did. Yeah. What were the circumstances? Yeah. Why wasn't it important to me? And you learn little things from that reflection.
Yeah, 100%. It's just tightening up the bolts. That's all it is. It's time, and it's learning to love the process. I mean, it never ends, right? The only day it ends is the day. This is my philosophy: is that we never stop improving ourselves until the day that we die. And unfortunately, we've all got to die. But until that day comes, I want to make sure that I'm accountable all the time, learning more about myself, improving myself. The number of times I changed my morning routine to suit how I'm evolving as well. So things that I felt would have been important to me on a morning routine a year ago aren't necessarily. One of the biggest things that I find I need in a morning routine is my walk in the morning now. And then we're allowed our daily walk in a minute, and I'm already thinking, God, my morning routine's going to change coming out the other end of this coronavirus thing. And lots is going to change, because I don't know about you, but my terms of my routine and my structure has become much better since this thing has happened. Like, since we faced this disaster, I've become much more structured because I've got no choice but to be much more structured, stuck under one roof.
Well, I think we're all having to put new boundaries in that we never had before. And certainly, I mean, I'm sure I'm like a lot of guys that were working from home, on and off calls and videos all day. Yeah. That could just literally take up your whole day if you wanted it to. But actually, you've got to consciously put boundaries in, and I think we will. Well, that's what you said. You've got to keep evolving those routines, and keep yourself accountable to whatever the change is. But accountability is not the nice thing is it's not a negative thing. Yeah, it's a real opportunity to sort of check in with yourself and have someone who's got your back and is checking in with you. And you need to sort of approach it in that way, I think.
I think it's nice to have those peers as well, right? I think those peers in your life is really important. I mean, I find myself, I guess, it always having to be high in accountability, in terms that I need to show up for you guys. I need to make sure that this is where we did that priority thing, where we, when we prioritize ourselves, everybody else gets the best version of yourself. So if I'm not doing my morning, if I'm laying in bed till 8 o'clock in the morning, then I'm no good to any of you. And I think that same mind status comes in terms of, if I'm lying in bed till 8 o'clock with another hangover, I'm no good to my family, I'm no good to my kids, and we go on. So listen, how important has the brotherhood community been for you over this process of you starting with us?
Do you know what? I can remember when I was doing, so I went from the 5-day onto the 28-day.
Yeah.
I called it 0 to 0 once and got called out by the community. The other way around, 0 to 0. I was on the 28-day, and I was going on. I found myself going on the group and posting about this. How I was sort of blown away by that sense of community, the authenticity of it, the openness of all the guys. And again, I spent too much of my life in work, and everyone's the same. We've all come from the same background in terms of training and education. They're all lawyers, so you get in amongst this community of people that are very kind of similar. But actually, the brotherhood's been great because it's all different people from different walks of life with different perspectives, and largely the problems I've got at work are first world problems. There's a lot of guys out there who've got some pretty meaningful challenges in their lives, and it's a huge inspiration, not only seeing what they're doing for themselves, but how they support each other. And then you kind of get sucked into that. It's very rare to have that sense of community. And it's also very rare to have that in a kind of typical, I mean, it's not completely, but a typically male group. Because I think we all lose touch with that male pack piece of our brain that we need to satisfy. And it's been really good. And it's not laddie at all. It's just a bunch of guys with similar issues in different lives, helping each other out. And I found that one of the most valuable things about the whole process.
Yeah. Do you know what I look at it as? Is that there's everyone's North Star here, and we're all pretty much aiming for that same North Star, but there are just almost 100 different paths heading all to that one point with their own personal mission, their own personal process. And I get a lot of enjoyment, in seeing people progress and people overcoming anxieties. There's people who've come off meds, which is incredible. There's people who completely turn their lives around, which is amazing. Including yourself, which is great to have you on. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're super turbo busy. I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you, which you answer straight away. They're not bad at all. If you had watched Mike's yesterday, they're not bad at all, but they just make you think quick. All right, you ready?
Shoot.
First thing that comes in your head. What makes you happy?
Traveling.
What
makes
the missus, of course.
Yeah, I know.
What makes you sad?
Separation.
What makes you angry?
Injustice.
Fight or flight?
Increasingly fight.
Biggest ambition?
Keep that zest for life.
Nice. What percentage are you running at the minute in your performance overall?
65.
And the final message to anyone watching?
All of this stuff, it's much better doing it in a group. It's just the community, the group supporting each other is a hugely valuable thing. And if nothing else, buddy up with someone, help yourself be accountable, support and encourage each other. That's what it's all about.
My man. Matt, thank you very much. We'll stay on at the end and just have a quick catch up. Guys, if you are listening, thank you for listening on the podcast, YouTube or Facebook. Make sure you jump in our 5-day Fire Up Challenge. It's coming up this Monday. What better way to spend than 5 days in isolation with me, a 3-year-old and a stressed mum trying to keep her under control. Thanks, guys. You can relax, Jay. 2 secs. Boom. Let me just stop this.